The F-150 has been the best-selling pickup truck for decades, but is it still reliable with all of the modern tech and the modern powertrains? We're going to talk about that in today's video. We're going to talk about common issues with the F-150, and then I'm going to give you guys practical advice as to which powertrain you should purchase with the F-150, which package you should also purchase with the F-150. Link to Tim Daly Ford's website in the description down below. They're providing us with the truck. Let's get into it. Normally we start off by talking about the engines, but we're actually going to start off with the transmission. The 10-speed that you have in the new F-150 that Ford co-developed with GM, well, it can be problematic. The most common issue with the 10-speed is harsh shifting. Now, something to note, transmissions need to be warmed up. So if you start up your truck and then just immediately drive and the transmission's a little bit harsh with the shifting, well, things aren't warmed up, especially if it's a really cold day. That's the first big thing. The second big thing is transmission failures. Now, this isn't as common. It actually seems to happen more with the GM vehicles than the Ford vehicles. Can't figure that out. But anyways, that is something else that's been happening that is obviously massively detrimental. But the biggest complaint is just harsh shift points with this transmission. Now, there are a bunch of different engine options with the F-150. The first is the 2.7 liter turbo V6. The Turbo 2.7 has actually been known to be pretty darn reliable as long as you keep up with the maintenancing, and that applies to every single F-150 engine. You need to maintain these regularly. I'll give you guys some maintenance advice at the end of the engine section. But with the 2.7, there have been some oil leak issues with the engine. Now, this is not across the board. This is just what has happened to some people. But generally speaking, it's actually a very reliable powertrain, and it's pretty fuel efficient too. Now, the next engine option, which is under the hood of this truck, is the 5-liter Coyote V8. Now, just like the 2.7, this can have some minor issues with leaking, but in general, it's actually a pretty robust engine, and it actually might be the most reliable engine you can get in the F-150. That's still up for debate because the turbocharged engines, although more complex in certain ways and obviously turbocharged, are actually so reliable that they seem to be just as good as the 5.0 V8, but again, this is a great powertrain, all things considered. And this leads us to the 3.5 powertrains. There is the standard output, the high output, and the power boost, which has hybrid assist. Now, cam phasers were an issue with the 3.5 EcoBoost for years. I mean, if you know someone that has a Raptor, they've probably complained about the cam phasers. That seems to have been phased out. See what I did there? It seems like they've pretty much fixed the cam phaser problems with the EcoBoost, so it's solid on that front. That being said, out of those three, the most reliable is going to be the standard output 3.5. It's the engine that's under the least amount of stress, and so if you're looking for long-term reliability with the big power V6, that's going to be the one to go for. The high output, again, is a good engine. It's just pushing out more power. It's under a little bit more stress, so it tends to have more issues sooner compared to the standard output, so you're probably just not going to get as many miles out of that. And then finally, we got the power boost. If you see this badge on a truck, you better start running. Okay, that was a little bit harsh, but the power boost is by far the least reliable powertrain with the F-150. Tons of electrical issues. Ford's claimed that they fixed most of it. I think it's a little bit too soon to tell on that. And so if you're willing to take the risk, then it's a cool engine. It gets good fuel economy. It also has a ton of power. But I know people personally that have had that powertrain completely fail on them. And so I think it's a little bit too soon, and I think the regular 3.5 EcoBoost is more than quick enough, has more than good enough fuel economy. I'd rather go for that than one of the power boosts. Now, when it comes to maintaining with these powertrains, if you're towing and off-roading on a regular basis, I would consider shortening your oil change intervals down to potentially 3,000–4,000 miles. On average, you should be 5,000 to 6,000 miles for the intervals. I wouldn't really go more than that. I know that you can with modern oil, but if you want to keep these engines running well for a long period of time, you want to make sure that they've got clean fluids. Now, if you want to help support the channel and continue this series, then I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe. Thank you. Now, when it comes to a lot of hardware with the F-150s, it's actually not all that problematic. These suspension components hold up well over time. Outside of the Raptor, F-150s come with leaf springs, which are very reliable. And when it comes to the Raptor, the coil suspension is very comfortable, but it's not going to be as reliable as leaf springs, especially if you tow and haul stuff on a regular basis. Understand that you're probably going to have to replace those coils at a much shorter mileage interval than if you went for leaf springs. Now, something funny to note, the F-150 gets a lot of crap for the aluminum construction with a lot of parts, but that means that it doesn't have rust issues like a lot of the other trucks. Now, something that is a bit more problematic is exhaust rattles. It can happen to pretty much any of the F-150s, so just be aware of it. And something to also be aware of before you purchase an F-150, just kind of go through the different panels. A lot of modern vehicles just have fit and finish issues. And you know, the F-150 is pretty good for a modern car, but it's something to definitely be aware of. Because if you're buying a new truck, you want it to be as new as possible, right? Now, the F-150 has also been known to have window regulator issues, and like a lot of other modern cars, issues with some of the electronics. Now, when Ford came out with the newer version of the F-150 back in the 21 model year, those trucks had significantly more electrical issues. This newest version that came out in 24 is significantly better. But also understand, every single new F-150 now has the digital gauge cluster and has the infotainment system. They're probably going to be fine, but these are going to be a little bit more expensive to replace if they do break because, well, they're big digital screens. Now, this truck doesn't have it, but the F-150 still can have sunroof leak issues. But this really isn't specific to the F-150, rather just vehicles with sunroofs. And so if you don't want to deal with that, just don't get a sunroof. Like, be honest with yourself. If you're going to use the sunroof, yeah, it could probably be worth it. But if you're not going to use the sunroof, it's not worth spending the money on the option, and it's not worth dealing with leaking down the road. Now, finally, the last issue can be the electronics associated with the drive mode select system and also the driveline. Basically, when you change the drive mode in the F-150, it will actually change the drive line in certain cases. So like if I pop it into sport mode, for example, and if my truck had the four-wheel drive auto function, it would automatically pop it into four-wheel drive auto. This one doesn't have it, so that's why I didn't do it. There have been cases where the truck will have a big glitch and it won't be able to get out of that drive mode. It'll let you manually take it out of the drive line that you have selected. So if you're in four-wheel drive low, for example, you can still get out of four-wheel drive low, but the truck programming might not go to the drive mode. The easiest fix for this is to just turn off the truck, lock it for a second, get back in, let the computer do a reset, and then everything should be fine. If you have more problems, you obviously have to take it in. Now, before I give you package advice on the F-150, let's just talk about how to keep your truck going for a long time. So like I said earlier, shorter maintenance intervals are going to be key with the F-150, especially if you live in a harsher climate. I live in Utah, for example. We have huge temperature swings, and so I take my vehicles in every 5,000 miles for maintenance. If I off-road them heavily, then I'm going to take them in at a shorter maintenance interval. So based on what you use the vehicle for, whether it's towing, off-roading, just understand that is going to put more wear and tear on items, and so you're going to want to get them checked out on a more regular basis. And furthermore, and this is what leads into the packaging, make sure that you get an F-150 that has the package that meets what you're actually going to be using the truck for. So if you plan on going into the desert and jumping the truck, you probably shouldn't do that with an XLT. You should probably be getting a Raptor. Likewise, if you're going to be towing most of the time, you're not going to do any off-roading, you should probably go for the XLT and not get the Raptor, because the Raptor suspension, it can tow. It's not meant for towing, it's meant for off-roading. So let's get into some of the packages. Now, this Tremor package I think is very appealing. This truck is under $70,000, has a 5-liter V8, leaf springs, off-road tires. So this is like a nice mix between being able to do the towing, but then also being able to do the off-roading. If you want to save yourself a little bit of money and you're not going to be doing as much off-roading, the XLT with the FX4 off-road package and the Blackout package, like I said, less than the Tremor, gives you similar capabilities. Now, a lot of people don't know about this package, but you can get the off-road package with the STX. It looks really cool, especially in Marsh Gray here, but it gives you a lot of the off-road equipment at a much more affordable price point, and it comes with a 2.7 V6, so this is just an affordable, reliable little off-road pickup. And then obviously stuff like the Lariat if you want more fancy features, but not necessary in a pickup truck. We all know that. So here's how I'd split it up package-wise. STX, if you're wanting to get the best bang for your buck, you either get the regular version or the off-road version of the STX. You can get it with a 5.0 V8 if you want. That is a great value in the F-150 lineup, so I would definitely consider that as a package. The next one that I think is great is the Tremor package, the regular Tremor, sub $70,000. Tons of off-road capability, tons of towing capability as well. Super balanced pickup truck. Like I said, if you don't do as much off-roading, the XLT gives you similar features at a lower price point. Lariat is as high as you should go in my opinion. The Platinum's a nice truck, but you're paying a lot of money for fancy seats, and so I just don't think it makes all that much sense. The Lariat, you can get all the same features at a lower cost. When it comes to the Raptor, the base Raptor is the best one to go for. The 35-inch tall tires are more than enough when it comes to clearance and off-road capability, and it saves you a ton of money. Again, the 37 package is over $10,000 more. The value's not really there. The V8 version's really cool, but it's super expensive. You're not gonna wanna take that off-road. So the Raptor, if you're actually gonna be doing heavy off-roading, is gonna be the way to go. But again, if you're gonna tow, the Raptor's not gonna be the route to go. So in conclusion, despite some issues with the modern F-150, it's still a reliable workhorse, and there are packages for pretty much everyone. I'll see you guys.